So we could go ahead and get started and just clue them in as we start. If that sounds good to you.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Great.
Cool. So, ladies, let's just pray, and then we'll get started with Colleen's presentation. So, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, you're the fire of love, and you are the peace of our hearts. So, Holy Spirit, we just ask that you bring all the women in this group and all those who will be joining us later just into that beautiful paradox of fire and wildness and peace and order. Lord, we just thank you for all that you've done this month. Thank you for what you'll continue to do. And Holy Spirit, I just ask that you be with Colleen and you just surround her with your love, fill her with your knowledge and your truth. Give her humility and courage and bravery and just wisdom to lead all of us to a deeper understanding of what it means to build a home around you. Lord, we just thank you and we praise you for this time together. And we ask this all in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Holy Spirit. Amen.
Wow. Anybody, please forgive me. Anybody who was not here last time, I did not write everybody's name down last time, but I think all of you were here, right? I'm looking at all your faces and they all look familiar. Okay, awesome, good. So really quick review. Okay, so if we were in my classroom now, I would have like a box of like Dove chocolates and I would be throwing them for correct answers. You ready? So my virtual Dove chocolates. That sounds really good right now with my little bit of red wine. But okay, so we talked about sort of getting started last time, right? And we talked about like 3 particular things to sort of like launch us into any particular organizing project. And the first thing was coming up with a vision, right, for your space. And does anybody remember sort of what I said was sort of the thing that we tend to do that gets us into trouble because we skip the coming up with the vision part?
You go right to the decluttering.
Right. We like just jump right into the decluttering, right? And why is that often sort of a recipe for disaster? Does anybody remember? Abby?
I mean, is it that you just get overwhelmed and discouraged by all the mess without having kind of like a vision to look forward to?
Yeah, right. Like if we've waited to start any particular project for X amount of time, there's usually a reason we've waited, right? So if we don't really have a plan, we can get started on the project. How many of us, me too, have started a project that we thought was going to be smaller than it actually turned out to be, right? Because we just don't, yeah, all of us, because we didn't have a plan. We didn't have a vision, okay? The second thing we talked about is just making sure we designate that specific time, right? We go into projects thinking like, I'm gonna do this kitchen, the kids are gone for 3 hours, I'm gonna do this kitchen, or my mother-in-law is gonna take them for a half a day, not realizing that an average kitchen takes 12 hours to do, right? So instead of breaking it down and making sure we have those small groups of time, we tend to just like dive in and go crazy. And then the kids come home 3 hours later and like 79 pieces of Tupperware are on the island and things like that, right? So, and then the third thing we talked about was picking one room, one project, and going start to finish on that project. And the hard part about that, right, is we pick our bedroom, we're getting all the kids' toys out of the bedroom, we bring the toys back into the kids' room, and then we start some random project in the kids' room that you're like, I'm just gonna do this for a couple minutes, right? So sort of like putting those blinders on and having that focus, so vision, write it down. What do I want the space to look like? Designate some specific time and then pick one thing, start to finish. Even if it takes you a month to do, one room, that's fine. Start to finish. And then the other, just real quick thing I wanted to review, just because it's going to come up every time, is when you're sitting with something in your hand, right? How do we decide? We talked about 2 questions to ask if you're trying to decide, do I toss this or do I keep it? Does anybody remember either of the questions?
Do I love it?
Yep. Is this something I love? Would I grab it if the house were on fire? Right?
And do I use it on a regular basis?
Yeah. Do I use it on a regular basis? And like, I just posted something on my Facebook page the other day. There was an article that a friend of mine wrote in Blessed Is She. And I was saying it's on just kind of like on minimalism and how she was convicted. It was funny because she was convicted about cleaning out her closet. And I was thinking of all of you, I'm like, we just have this conversation. But she was just saying that it's just so easy to just put it, she said literally her shelves fell down in her closet. And that was kind of her like sign from God, like, maybe it's time I get rid of some of these clothes, you know? So do I love it, but you can't love everything. And do I use it on a regular basis? So I reposted that. And one of my smart aleck friends says, well, for the last year, I haven't put anything on in my closet except my sweatpants. And I was like, okay, this year doesn't count. This year doesn't count. We all get a pass. You can have an extra year to decide if you're going to get rid of something, right? But I think the bottom line is, you know, just trying to be honest. And sometimes we have to be a little bit hard on ourselves, right? To just say, I really don't love this. I paid a lot for it, and that's why I'm having a hard time getting rid of it. Or like, somebody gave this to me and I know they loved it, so I'm trying to love it, but I don't feel cute in this. You know, I don't really want to keep it, but I'm keeping it for reasons that aren't good reasons. So, okay, so review over. Here's my chocolate. Here we go. So today we tackle the topic that really I think is probably the hardest organizational topic, because there's not even anything fun, at least when we do our clothes, right? And we like Marie Kondo our underwear in our drawer, we can open that drawer and be like, whoo, it looks so pretty, you know, even if it doesn't stay that way forever. But we're going to talk today about paper clutter. So quick story. I spoke at the national conference in Washington, D.C. I spoke there a couple times, but probably about 5 years ago. Now this conference boasts like 1,800 women who come for this conference. And so there are like 5 talks going on at the same time. So you get to pick, right, hourly, which one you want to go to. And you always just hope and pray that you don't get a time slot that's up against like the keynote speaker, especially if it's a really good keynote speaker. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Dr. Ray Guarendi, but he's like half comedian, half psychologist. And he was the keynote speaker in DC. And sure enough, I got put up against Dr. Ray. Okay. So we're sitting in the speaker's room and I was like, I mean, could you throw me a bone? Could you tell your people at your talk who won't be at my talk to come to my table afterwards at least and talk to me, you know? And he's laughing. He's like, oh yeah, I'll help you out. So they give me the little room, right? And there were up like 5 of us, and he gets the, you know, like big major conference room. Well, I just so happened to be giving a talk on paper clutter. That was my talk. I got more people at my talk than Dr. Baker did. Right. Which is hilarious, right? They're like freaking out and they're bringing chairs in, and afterwards Dr. Ray's like, yeah, thanks. That was really nice. I was like, sorry, it's a real problem, you know? So I tell that story because it's our whole life, right? For most of us, no matter how organized we are, paper just gets the best of us. So we're kind of going to talk all things paper today, and like some budgeting and office space and things like that. And Abby and I practiced a little bit before you guys all got online. I'm going to move over to my little desk and show you some things in a few minutes. So just be patient while we kind of wobble around. Like I said, we're trying this for the first time, so hopefully you'll be able to see. So oftentimes when people walk in my house, now remember, you know, my house kind of is my business card. So I tend to try to keep it pretty tidied up. But people often say like, probably the thing I heard the most, like, where are your piles? Why do you not have piles everywhere? Everyone has piles. And so I got that question so many times that I kind of made up a funny line. My piles are in the files. So, and it started out like as a joke, like my piles are they're in my files, but it's really, really true. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but having some kind of a designated area in your house where a good filing system that we're going to talk about can live, and where all of your sort of like officey things can live is so, so, so important. Okay, so I'm going to back out of the way and here, see if you can see. This is my little, you see my little desk over there? Can you guys see it? I'm going to walk closer. Oh, la, 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 la. We're going to come back here in a few minutes, but this is literally my office. There is a computer. It's a tiny desk, like 2 feet by, I don't know, 3 feet, something like that. I have a little lamp. I've got a file cabinet. Okay, so 3 file cabinets all together, small one on the bottom and then 2, and then just a small little drawer that has my little supplies in it. And I show you that, and we'll walk back over there in a minute, but I show you that just to say that the smallest area can still be highly functional for a good system for some kind of office space. But that's one of the biggest mistakes that I find people make, like right off the bat. Like, well, I sit at the island and pay my bills. And so, well, you know what? So do I. I don't sit at that desk to pay my bills, but everything I need to kind of take care of my life of paper is in that desk for the most part. Okay. So is it possible to stay organized even in the smallest spaces? Yes. And so we're going to focus on 3 things that we're going to talk about right now to sort of help us stay on top of paper clutter. Okay. So the first thing is develop a good system. So some of you may have a great filing system already, and you can just like sit back in your chair and, maybe you can teach the rest of us something afterwards. But I have literally found that I would say 90% of my clients or more who are struggling with paper do not have a good filing system. A woman that I'm working with right now, we just had our 1-year anniversary. So I go to her house once a month for 5 hours. So same as I see you guys, but for a lot longer, with my gym shoes on and my sweatshirt on and, roll up my sleeves, and we work really hard. Her entire house, every single room needs a lot of help. And her goal is to try to have it ready to sell in 3 years. That's how much work this house needs. So she literally, imagine this, when you walk in her kitchen, her family room is, further away. And I told her I was going to tell this story. I have her permission. She doesn't care. She doesn't know any of you. So, and literally there was a pile of paper, stacks of paper that probably were like about the size of my desk, like 3 feet wide, several feet high, at least. That was her filing system. Bags, like jewel bags, 1 million of them. But she's like, I know what's in those jewel bags. And I know, and I was like, oh, no. We are taking all the paper out of these bags. And she's like, no, she fights me every step of the way, but she knows that it's all the stuff that we need to do. So I'm going to show you my filing cabinet, and I'm going to bring my little paper with me here. So again, if you guys can't see it, just please unmute yourselves and speak up here, because I want you to be able to see what we're talking about. But Abby said she could see it pretty well. So I'm going to open my filing drawer, and I'm going to tell you a couple things that I think are super, super key about having a good filing system. Okay, so Abby, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to just try to leave it there while I say a couple things. So as you can see, all of my files in here are hanging files, okay? I don't have any of those little manila files. Now, if you want to have like a subcategory in one of these, then I'm all for having the little manila file. but I am a huge fan. And actually, when I was getting ready for this talk, I was like, wow, I need some new files in here. Like they're looking pretty old, but they have served me well for a really long time. So, okay, as you can see, there's lots of different colors in here, right? And every color means something, okay? And the colors don't matter. It's just that like-minded folders have the same color, okay? So all these blue ones in the front, these are all my utilities, okay? Behind them, these are my two banks, okay? Then I have all my insurance, all these powder blue files, these 4 files, all insurance. Okay, and on it goes. You'll also notice that these are all tabbed. See how they're tabbed in order so that I can see all of them? So this says education, Luke, Noah, Maeve, Sadie. So when I open this up, I can see every single file, okay? Now, I'm not saying that this is the way that it's right. This is the way you have to do it. But this is a system that's worked really, really well for me. A lot of people like to do like alphabetical filing too. That's another way that you could do it, but it does not work for me. And I went to one client's house once. It was so funny. She had all her files, all the exact same color, and all of her tabs were down the middle. Like it looked super neat when you opened it up, but she couldn't find anything ever, you know? So I'm gonna show you this one. So this one, so I think I shared with you guys that we just like bought a little cottage last year, right? So Abby, tell me when you can see this. Can you see them?
Yeah.
Okay, so see all those green folders, all the greens? Those are all cottage things. So you see the tabs, they all say cottage and then something else about them, okay? So you guys get the idea, right? You get the idea.
Mhm.
I'm gonna walk back over here. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you a couple of my sections, okay, that you just saw. Insurance has its own section. Utilities has its own section. All my business files are in purple, okay, just because it's fun color, so I want to do something fun. All of our taxes and all things related to sort of like the house and that boring stuff, that's all in one color. Our vehicles, so we have 2 folders that are the same color, both of our cars that we can pull it out quickly. All our credit cards, that's a category, okay? Okay, so what do you guys do if you're my client who had 0 filing system? She didn't even own a filing cabinet. I had to send her out to buy a filing cabinet. You do something hard, and that's the same thing that you do for every other room of the house that we've been talking about, and that's just start slowly. So take a pile, and this is what we did with her, and we did get through it pretty quickly though. She was surprised. We got through that tower in like 10 hours, really, like two times we got through it all, and we had a working filing system by the end of that second day. So get some kind of space where you can lay out your paperwork, okay? And get a good stack of Post-it notes. And just start laying things out. Oh, this is a credit card thing. This is for my taxes. This is for my kids, school. A lot of people have like a school file, things like that. And literally until you can get through it all. Now, you might not be able to leave it all out. That's why the Post-it notes are good, because you can kind of keep them separated. But anywhere that you can kind of lay everything out and just start to go through your paper. And just, if it's bad at your house with the paper system, just do a small amount at a time. Same thing, come up with a vision. Okay, I'm gonna go through these couple bags today and I'm gonna Post-it note them all. So then when you get through everything, you can kind of say like, all right, I have these are my categories. Then you can write on the Post-it note, like, this is my education, and then put all the education ones together. Buy those multicolored hanging folders, and then you can just play around with them. Like, oh, all right, I think my utilities are going to be yellow. I think my insurance is going to be green. And if that sounds anal, and I know that it probably does, I'm just telling you, that I can get to any piece of paper in my house in about 30 seconds. Literally. So, for example, the other day, my son Josh is trying to find his ACT scores, right? He's 26, but he was applying for something for his engineering program. He's trying to get out of a class, so he needed his ACT scores. So I know where those are, right? Another great little tip, those labels, those clear labels, okay? And you know how mine were like typed up? My husband is not the tidy one in the family, but he has his weird anal things, which makes me really happy when any of them come out. So he likes to type out my labels for me. So I'm like, all right, type up the labels, but it doesn't matter what they look like. They don't have to be all nicely typed as long as you can read them. So when you open the file cabinet, if you can read everything, then that's awesome. Another great little tip, make a separate file for every member of the family for the following things. So if you're a note taker, this is a great thing to write down. So many people have told me how much this has helped them. So I'll tell you, there are 4 categories that all 7 of us have a separate file for, okay? One is a medical file. And you might think now, like, why does everybody, the insurance comes bundled. Okay, so a lot of my kids have been to the emergency room, broken a bone, had some kind of a surgery, something significant medically that I might have to get a hold of that at some point later. You know what I mean? So it's really nice to just have, even if each of those files only has a couple things in them, I know where all of their medical stuff is. Second, a financial file for all of them. Now, in this day of everything is online, I don't know, maybe someday we won't need a filing system anymore, but I still use mine all the time, and I, do a lot of things online. But a financial file is great for like kids' bank statements. It's nice if kids have a savings account, even though they could go online and check everything. It's nice for them to know how to like find, well, you don't even have checkbooks anymore. None of you are probably even old enough to remember, when we got bank books. Does anybody remember having a bank book? All right, thank you. And I used to go in my bank book, and every time you went to the bank to put your $10 in, they put it in that little machine, remember, and it would pop out and it would have your new total on it. And I was like so excited to look at my bank book that my dad always kept in a secret place. Well, my kids know, and as they're getting older, it's nice because anything financial that comes in for them that they need to hold on to gets plopped in their financial file. Another great file, if you have kids, is an education file for everybody, or even just for yourselves if you don't. So things I put in my education file: report cards, all standardized tests. I have 2 kids who have an IEP, so all of their paperwork from their education plans are in that file. Anything college related, everything, just all the new stuff goes in the front. So, my 26-year-old son has a nice big education file. And then the last thing is a personal documents file for everybody. I cannot tell you how many of my clients are like, I can't find my marriage certificate. I don't know where my birth certificate is. I don't know where my social security book, card, passport. So all of that stuff that's important can always live in one place, and you can always find it. Okay. So first thing, a good filing system. Second,
Colleen, can I hear? So I love that. That's really super helpful. I just wanted to share, there's a gal at my work for my first daughter. She gave me a box that was a filing system for my baby, and it had like this beautiful sign on it. It said Charlotte, and then it had like birth K through 12. So I could like put a couple pieces of their art in each file, like as they grow.
Cool.
But Colleen, if you would make these and market them, I swear I would pay for I just don't want every baby. I'm like, and now I have to make one of those. And I like hate that. But if I could go online and someone could ship me a beautifully crafted file system for
Well,
my
it sounds like somebody already has a patent on that, Lauren.
I would totally buy that from you.
No,
But she just makes them. She goes to like Office Depot or whatever.
Oh, she just makes them.
Oh, she just makes them. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I just want to throw that idea out there because it's so nice to just have like a box for each kid.
That's a great idea. We'll
Yeah.
talk about this later when we talk about, I think it's next month when we talk about kid spaces. But for those of you with kids, just literally one of the most helpful things is that everybody in the house has, this is sort of like the advancement of a filing system. Everyone in our house, we call it a special bin. My husband's really special because he needed to fit all his stuff. So it's kind of for that kind of stuff too, Lauren. So, but my kids can they can pick their own bin. Usually they don't care. I just get them. And depending on the boys are a little bit bigger because they have like trophies. So your special bin is sort of for those things that you want to keep, but you don't want to keep them out anymore. You know what I mean? So when we just went through, my mom just moved. We just moved her out of her house after 47 years. And wow, if she would have been a paying client, you guys, I would not have to work for a really long time. Wow, a lot of hours going through that house. But I was just paying her back for all the free babysitting. I think that's the way I look at it. And she's wonderful, so I would do anything for her. But so I found every report card that all of us four kids ever had. Every art project, but they were everywhere. They were in her underwear drawer. They were in her closet. They were in the crawl space. Like nothing was in one place. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, that I do this for a living. Because I mean, it was insane. But it was cool because the things that I found from her that I want to keep, I knew exactly where they were going to go, And again, this is more next month, but if you kind of give yourself a limited space, it's the same thing with the filing cabinet. This is the space I have. So, I mean, we have a 3-drawer filing cabinet for 7 people. Okay. And again, in this world of technology, really, that's plenty. So like everything else, like your t-shirt drawer and your underwear drawer and your filing system and your bins, when things start to overflow from the designated container, that's when it should be that okay, it's time to get rid of some stuff, right? Okay, second thing we can do to keep our paper really organized after we make this awesome, beautiful, colorful filing system is to go through our mail and any paper that comes in the house every single day. It was so funny because one of the first things I always say is, there's this great saying that, the goal is to touch a piece of paper one time before we actually do what we need to do with the paper. Okay. So 80% of every single thing that gets put in our mailbox is junk mail. 80%. The problem is a lot of times we see the mail comes in, it gets thrown somewhere. We don't really have a system for it. So sometimes we find it in this place and sometimes we find it in that place. And sometimes one of our kids grabs it and it's like under the couch or something like that, right? So it's my kids, we homeschooled so we could do this, but they would listen for the mailman. It was like a game. And so it was a total disruption from school, but it was kind of funny. So it was like first one to the door wins. So as soon as they heard that the mailbox, boom, everybody would cruise to the mail. And then they would very proudly hand me the pile of mail. Here, mom. And I would go through it right away. So 80% of everything in my hand went straight into the recycling bin. Okay. So obviously, there's so much less mail now because so many things are online. Does everybody use online billing for the most part? Are we pretty much all doing that? I do have some clients too who just still say like, I don't really trust it. I'm not sure about it. I absolutely love it. The only thing that I don't get automatically deducted is my mortgage, because I like to have a little bit more control over like when exactly I pay that. If it's a really tight month, I might need an extra like 3 or 4 days to make sure that that's okay, but that will reduce your paper clutter. And now you can click an option on Nicor and ComEd and AT&T and everybody to say like, you don't even want any paper sent to your house. So that's an option too, to try to reduce paper. Okay, but here's the really hard part, okay? We know what to do with the junk mail. We might not do it every day, and that's the goal. Like if we can just get through that mail immediately when it comes in. Okay, so the junk mail goes into the recycle bin, okay? And then I open it up. The very first folder, hanging folder in my cabinet says bills, okay? So if I do get a paper copy of something, every once in a while at ComEd, Nicor, they'll still send me a piece of paper. I still have a file for all those things. So I just drop them in there, okay? After you have a good filing system, maybe I get a bill from the doctor that I've already paid online and they're just showing me, okay? So that goes into my medical file, something like that. But what do you do with all of those dumb things that you're like, if I put this somewhere, I'm never gonna find it again? And those are the things that grow on our countertops, right? For example, you get a wedding invitation, okay? And you fill out the RSVP, or now that's all going online too, you know? And then what do you do with the little card? Because, I mean, okay, so we could put it in our phone and put the address for everything and the time. If we're that organized, that's great, but I'm usually not doing that right away. What do you do with it? What do you do with prescriptions? You know how sometimes, so my son, all 3 of my sons have ADD, but one of them lives in Bismarck, right? So I have to fill his prescription. The doctor gives us like 3 prescriptions at a time, but I can't fill them 3 at a time. I can only fill them once a month. So what do I do with these other 2 prescriptions, right? And it maybe requires a phone call. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? This random stuff where you're like, what do I do with this? So I'm going to show you a little system that I created. You might think this is crazy. It's so simple. Sometimes I think it's crazy, but it has worked so well for me. And I really did not even clean this up for you guys because I just want it to look like it does when I use it. Okay, so this is a binder that costs, I don't know, $5. And this is my ugliest binder that I've ever had. I usually have like a really pretty one that has some flowers on it. But you know what? I was at Office Max and I really needed a new one because I go through these about once a year. And they didn't have any pretty ones that I liked. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get a cool picture, the Blessed Mother. I never did it. Okay, so here's my boring black binder, okay? I call this my rule. And I got this idea to make this book from a book called A Mother's Rule of Life. Has anybody heard of that book? A couple of you guys? So the author, her name is Holly Pierlot, and she is this amazing woman from Canada. She was a keynote speaker at a conference I was speaking at as well. And I think every woman in the world should read this book. Now, she's a homeschooler, so you don't have to be a homeschooler to glean tons of knowledge from her book. But essentially what she did was she was losing her mind with the chaos in her house with her 5 kids. And she was like, there has to be a better way. And so she got this inspiration from the Holy Spirit to start studying. You know how every like religious community has what they call a rule, right? Their rule of life. And it's essentially like all the things that are important to this particular order and the way that they're going to live their lives day in and day out. So she decided that her family needed to have a rule. Okay, so I kind of took that idea and went like a little hog wild with it. But I'm going to show you my system. It's so easy, you guys. It's a $5 system. I could make no money, Lauren, marketing this because it's like go to Walmart and buy a binder. That's pretty much That's
I don't know though, you've got the tabs already done. I'd buy that from you. I'm serious.
I did. Okay, so I'm going to show you my fun stuff. All right. Here's what you need. The binder has to be 3-ring, and it has to have a front pocket, and it has to have a back pocket. All right, and I'm going to tell you why. All of this stuff in the front pocket of my binder are all of the things that I am going to be working on this week. Okay, that's it, just this week. Things I think I can get done this week. See this little blue lined Post-it note right here? I didn't even rewrite it or anything and make it all like tidy looking. Everything that's in here, usually this sits right here. Everything that's in this section is on this little, this note, this Post-it note. Why? Okay, so wait, well, I'm gonna finish and then I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, so every Sunday, then things get added, things get done and crossed out. So then every Sunday I rewrite my little note. And I love, does anyone else use these big lined Post-it notes? Oh my gosh, I love these. I love the pink ones. They're my favorite because they're so bright and I can like find it anywhere I go. Can't tell you how many times I called home. I was like, kids, go look at mom's rule. What's number 3 on the Post-it note? Because it's like something that I need and I forgot to bring my book. Okay. All right. So back pocket. Back pocket is, these are all of those things that I don't know what to do with right away. I don't want to file them somewhere because I'm going to need them, but maybe I don't need them for 2 weeks or for 3 weeks. Okay. So I'm literally going to show you what's in here. Okay. So we're going to talk about this more later, but my husband and I each get an allowance every week. So this is my little allowance envelope, and I save my allowance for special things that I want. So this is where my extra money goes. Okay. These are like 3 doctor's appointments that I just made for my daughter Sadie, but they're like 2.5 weeks from now. So I don't have to worry about this right now. Okay. This is like something that I have to go drop off at a doctor's office. It's a scan of something, but I don't need to do it. It's not pressing, so I'm not doing it this week. So it goes in the back of the binder. Okay. This is a flight. Yes, I am getting on a plane to go see my sister in Boston next month, but it's a month away. But I'm not going to file this somewhere because I don't want to lose my itinerary, right? Even though it's on my phone. See what I mean? So every Sunday night, I literally spend 5 minutes and I check my binder and I move anything from the back that has now become a this week project to the front, and it goes on my little Post-it note. The entire process probably takes me like under 15 minutes every Sunday night. Okay, my little pretty tabs. Okay. Essentially, I'm a professional organizer, and so I do this for a living. So I've got some of my business stuff in here because I can take this with me and show people different cool things. Like this is, see, it says Colleen's rule on the top. This is my anal retentive schedule for my week that I never follow to the letter, but at least like I have hopes of like, this would be like a perfect day for each of the days. But, I just like pulled a muscle on my Peloton. So now I don't have to exercise for like 2 weeks, which is really great. So that I can sleep a little bit later now, but I have all of these tabs like, okay, my mom, I'm taking care of my mom right now, right? We're going through tons of doctor's appointments. We're getting her moved into her apartment. So all the things that are important about my mom's medicine and all that, they're in this section. And these pocket protectors, guys, they are the bomb. I should own stock in like these pocket protectors because thousands of them have been sold and bought by my clients. Okay. I have another section that says cottage. Okay. These are all little projects that we're working on in the cottage. I have probably the most important page for my husband, and I didn't even clean it up for you guys. Doctors. If I drop dead tomorrow, do you think my husband would know who all of our doctors are? There are a lot of doctors. I have 5 kids, a lot of doctors. Do you think he knows who like the orthodontist versus like the endodontist and 0? He does not know. He knows a lot of things, but so this is like gold. He's like, if the house were on fire, I would grab the doctor file, it's all there. But the point is that you can make these tabs anything you want. Now, here's the great thing about this. When I leave the house and I'm going to be gone, let's say you're bringing your kid to a doctor's appointment and maybe you only have one, so you actually might have like a peaceful moment. Or for me, I'm bringing my mom to the doctor, right? I take this with me and I literally cannot, you're sitting in a sports practice. That's no fun, but it's only an hour, so you don't want to go home, yada, yada, yada. You know that there are a million different things. This comes with me and I can knock off a thing here and a thing there. And so all of those things are not just like sitting, waiting for me when I get home all the time. So I have no idea if this is going to be helpful for any of you guys at all, but I tell you, I don't know how I would function. I have friends who, in the organizing world, I have met a lot of cool people. I mean, the Monk Manual is out there. All of Blessed is She has a great like daily planner. My $5 Walmart binder, man, it is for me what works the best. It's not, lovely and beautiful and soft and pretty, but it can be. You can make it anything you want. I should just slip a cool little picture in there, but maybe that'll be on my Post-it note for next week to actually put something on my binder. Okay, so filing system, create a rule, and get to the mail and open the paper, deal with the paper right away. The other thing that I think is really helpful, and this is just sort of an aside, and it attaches onto a couple of these different areas, and it will attach onto the budgeting section we're going to talk about in a minute too, is that my husband and I, for as long as I can remember, have Monday night. Now, does it happen every Monday night? Of course not, because we actually have a real life that we're living. But when the kids were littler, this was easier to do because we were kind of stuck at home more, But Monday night, we call it budget and paperwork night. And we try to be really faithful to it. We have a holy hour that we do. Our adoration chapel just opened again. Woo woo. So we have an hour of adoration from 7 to 8 and then 8 to 10. Sometimes we need that whole amount of time. Oftentimes we need a half an hour. But that's the night that we go in and we'll look at all the paper that's kind of, like yesterday, I had a huge pile on the table that just needed to get put in all of the files. And I needed to make a couple new files actually. And so, if that time is not just gonna happen, right? We have to sort of set it aside. So, maybe for some of you that's completely impossible right now, but it's really helped us a lot. Even if we only get an hour every other week, it's some time that's just set aside to deal with our paper. But I usually tell people, if you can put 15 minutes into your paperwork every day, you will not be buried in your piles. So there is my rant about paper. I hope it was helpful. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about budgeting. Okay, so this is a super personal topic for everybody because how we choose to spend our money and use our money is very personal for all of us. What I have found is that most people don't have a really good system for telling their money what to do. And a lot of us are living on a really tight budget. So we kind of knew from the beginning of our marriage that we were going to have to work on this because, do they still do focus tests when you're getting married? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. So, we got like 90th percentile on like spirituality. And we got like 90th percentile compatibility for communication. And we got like 10 percentile for finances. When we took this stupid test, I'm laughing. I'm like, when you're in college, what are you like? Do we have money for the Domino's pizza that's $4.99 or not? That was like the biggest thing that we were worrying about in college. So it didn't worry us that we weren't, super compatible with our money. But I think that, it's hard to know what that's going to look like, whether it's just you or you're living with a roommate or you're living with a husband, right? Everybody's style is a little bit different with money. And so we had so we knew that we kind of were going to have to work on this. And then soon after we were married, we met a wonderful couple who Abby knows well, Jen and Brian Bartley. And they were getting married soon after we were, and he was a super on fire Protestant, and he was telling us all about tithing, right? So now I watched my parents be really generous. And, you know, my dad put that envelope in the basket every week at Mass. And I was kind of like, wow, that's a lot of money, you know, that dad's putting in. But we had not talked about any of that. Okay. So we knew we had a lot to talk about. So for the first 20 years of our marriage, we lived on an extremely tight budget, really, really tight budget. And we used some systems here and there. And I mean, God is good and nobody ever went hungry. So we were all right. But when I was pregnant with Sadie, our last baby here on earth, I've got a beautiful little 10-year-old daughter in heaven. We discovered Dave Ramsey. Are any of you familiar with Dave Ramsey or maybe using Dave Ramsey? Okay, so Dave Ramsey would have caused, like, we would have saved so much grief if we would have found him earlier on in our marriage. But essentially, it completely changed our lives. And for those of you who don't know, he uses a cash-only system for the most part. Like cash that is like expendable, right? Like pay everything online that are regular bills and stuff like that. But that expendable money comes out in cash because statistics show that we spend like 40% less money if we have to hand somebody over a $50 bill versus swipe our card, right? And I am here as a testimony that that is so true. I hate giving that cash over to anybody. It feels so different, right? Than putting the dumb little card into the debit machine. So it gave us so much freedom because what I realized is like, here's our number. We've got this much money every month. And sometimes that varies. Maybe you guys have a job that's not predictable, so that's harder to do, but there are ways, and he talks about that. But essentially, it was the first time that we were really telling our money where to go instead of our money kind of telling us what we were going to be stressed about that month. And so instead of being ruled by our spending, we were able to start really like planning. And, you know, early on, we used to say like, okay, well, we've got, you know, $50 a month for clothes, we have $100 a month for home improvement, whatever. And I think the Dave Ramsey system is so great because essentially he's like, no, you look at your budget essentially a month at a time. Okay. And maybe this month you have 3 birthdays and next month you have none. So you can either get some cash out and save for that, or you can get all the cash out this month for the 3 birthdays and you don't have to use any on gifts next month. So it was just sort of like a new way of thinking. And I know probably a lot of you guys have different systems that have been working for you, but just in case somebody doesn't, I just wanted to throw that out there. I want to show you 2 quick things that I was supposed to grab before we started. So talk amongst yourself for 30 seconds while I grab something. Andrew?
While we're waiting, Lauren sent me a really funny picture of, has anyone seen Maximilian Kolbe's desk? This picture before? Okay, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up while she's gone and screen share it because it's just, it will give you so much hope. Let me see, Lauren, I'm gonna try to just open it from here and see how that goes. Carl, have you seen this before? Have you seen Maximilian Kolbe's desk?
Mm-mm.
Let's see if I can find it.
Colleen's gonna freak out. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All the most
Need some hope.
I didn't think I could love him anymore. And then I saw
that maybe gives me a panic attack just looking at it, but I can appreciate it.
Anyhow, there's that.
That's so funny. All right, just 2 really quick things that I wanted to show you. So this is the Financial Peace University is the name of the organization that Dave Ramsey runs. And they have their own, like, this is a wallet from Financial Peace. And the idea behind this wallet is that it gives you literally, this is how beat up it is because I use it all the time. So you get cash out and it all goes into this. So this says fun money, because you know, you have to budget for fun. And then you've got like groceries. And so the stuff that you're gonna like mom or, you know, the woman is going to be in charge of, that cash goes in here. But the thing that was really life-changing for me is the stuff that shouldn't sit in our purse, because we need to tuck some money aside and plan for it. Okay. So this is my little like accordion folder thing. And I love just that it's little and it fits a big envelope in it. And these are all of the categories that we just save for. Okay. So there's an education file in there. How many of you get to the beginning of the school year and you're like, oh my gosh, school supplies, they're so expensive. I need like I have 5 kids. I'm like, I need like $300 for school supplies. And so guess what I do? Like every other month, I budget a $50 bill and I put it in my school supplies envelope. And then when September comes, hopefully, if I haven't robbed that envelope for something else, I've got the money for it. Okay. So this is just a great little way. Now, like, I always like try to not get this out when people are in the house, because I'm like, there's a lot of money in here. And if we were going to get robbed, if someone found this, they would hit the jackpot, right? But it would hopefully be something I could grab if the house were on fire, hopefully. But it's really nice just to be able to save for like some special events and things like that, birthdays, that I can actually plan for a little bit. Okay. Yada, yada, yada. All right. I want to say just a couple things about tithing. And then one more quick thing, and then I want to open up for questions. So, back to the budgeting for one more minute. Essentially, every pay period, we have 2 pay periods, a month. And I have a little spreadsheet, and I go to the bank, and all the tellers know me, and they laugh like, here comes the cash lady. They call me the cash lady. And I get my cash out. And literally sometimes I'm getting like $1,300 worth of cash out in like 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s. So if you know how to use Excel, or somebody in your house, I am not computer savvy, but I have learned Excel and it's so fun. You can do so many things with it, and you can make it pretty too, because you can learn to use the colors and everything. So I like just kind of look at my month and see what I need money-wise and what we have going on. And then I go to the bank and I get my cash out, and then I just drop it into all of my little envelopes, unless COVID-19 hits and then all your income comes to a grinding halt and you're like just trying to pay the bills. So, it's been that year for everybody. Also great for Christmas. We started like a little Christmas fund. So now when December comes, I'm not panicking, because, Christmas is expensive with all of these children and godchildren. We have 10 godchildren. So that's crazy too. So it's really nice to be able to think about that. So anyway, again, we lived in some fear when we first got married, and we're learning how to budget because we never had money set aside. Like, we were using everything that we brought in. And I mean, I was working in a Catholic school. My husband was like a brand new engineer. So we were not making a lot of money, but we could have been thinking through this a little bit more, but we didn't have a good program to follow. And like I was telling you earlier, we saw my parents being generous. And I always knew like, oh, you got to put your envelope in at mass, but I never really gave too much thought to donations and giving and tithe. And I didn't even know the word tithe. But like I said, my good Protestant friends, we went out to dinner. I remember we were in downtown Naperville at a pizza place. And for some reason, they brought up the idea of tithing. And they're like, so, I'm assuming you guys are tithing? And I like look at Andrew. I was like, what does that mean? So he was telling us about, his good Protestant upbringing, that they all, were taught that, the first 10% of your income comes off the top and it's donated. And I was like, 10%, I was like, that's a lot of money. But as we started talking about that, we realized that that was not like an accidental conversation, and that God was really calling us out and challenging us to be generous. And I am not here by any stretch of the imagination to tell you that you should be giving 10%. That is between you and Jesus. But I do want to encourage you to just really take that to prayer. If tithing, I'm sure all of you are generous in giving, but I just want to share a quick testimony about how faithful God has been to us in our finances. And I really believe that it's because we've been faithful as much as we can, and circumstances change, right? When we were at a point where one of my sons needed like a private tutor, we had to like really pull back on our giving because he couldn't read, right? So we had to pay a private tutor for a while. And so circumstances change. But two really quick stories. We've had young adults live with us over the course of the last 10 years. We're on I think our fifth one now. So we have a basement apartment. So they rent that space from us, but it's always somebody who like we want to bring into the family. It's not just like a renter who uses a separate door. And so one of the women who used to live with us used to say, I swear she loved Monday night budget, and paperwork night was like her favorite, because she's like, I would watch all the magic happen, you know? And our joke would be like, Andrew would be like, are we rich this month? Or this week? And I'd be like, no, we're not rich. And he's like, don't use the debit card. I'm like, don't use the debit card. So that like became a joke, right? So she'd always say like, are we rich this week? So, but she not jokingly said like, I swear I'm going to write a book someday about all the financial miracles I witnessed happen in your house. So fast forward, last April, COVID, my son and his fiance at the time had to move home because the university shut down. So she moved into our basement apartment because nobody was living there. He went back into like the bunk bed in his brother's room. And we're sitting at the table and this story comes up about how God like has just provided so well for us, yada, yada, yada. And I kid you not, the week that they moved back home, our washing machine broke. And I'm like, we have 8 people living here. It's COVID. We have a broken washing machine. Not 3 days later, there's a knock on my door and someone anonymously bought us a washing machine. It just showed up at my door. We still to this day have no idea who it was. And my daughter-in-law literally like takes a step back and she goes, who are you people? This is crazy. This doesn't happen, you know? But I mean, honestly, you guys, I could write a book on all of the ways in which God has just financially blessed us. I lost my job at the girls' high school because of COVID, which was just a small, you know, it was a small income. But God has, because I've needed to take care of my mom, God has just made up for every single dollar of my income that I was making at the high school. And there's no explanation for it except that he's generous and good. And you know, so there's my little story for you. Just ask the Lord how he wants you to be generous, and he will tell you, and it'll probably be hard. And then you guys can have a conversation about it and see what happens. All right. The last thing I want to tell you before we start chatting is that this is my little infomercial. And really, this is no big deal. If nobody wants at either of these things, it's not a big deal at all, but I want to show it to you just because when I talk at conferences or talks in person, I always do. So this is another one of my little binders, and it has, I have 2 things that I always sell when I'm at conferences and talks. So I've got this little, it's just a bunch of PDF files. There's a school schedule in there, an allowance chart that's like broken out by age for our kids. So I was at a conference once and this woman came back on Saturday and she's like, I bought your thing last night and I went in and I changed all your kids' names to my kids' names and I hit print. So now all my kids hate you, even though they don't know who you are, because they're all doing your kids' jobs, right? But it's just got a great idea of like, what can I expect of my kids? Stuff like that. There's a meal planner in there, a grocery planner, like a morning checklist, some like, yeah, a bunch of little things. So I have this. So if you want it, let me know. And then I have, this is my favorite thing. This is about an hour and 20-minute video tour of my house. And the reason that we did this is because I would be speaking at conferences all the time and people would say like, oh, I wish I could just be a fly on the wall of your house. Or I wish I could see this. I want to open all your drawers and like snoop around and just see how you do things. And I thought, hey, you can't come to my house in person, but I could come to you via your computer or your television. So I hired this great little young man who wanted to be studying, who wanted to go to film school. So it's very rough and fun, not suave and professional, tour of my house, but it's got like a million little tips for every single room. And I'm very proud of it because he did such a good job editing it. It's really sweet. So I gave this talk in Texas at a conference, and I sold 100 of these in an hour. And the following year, my son Luke was on net, and his net team was stationed in Texas. And twice his host mom was like, wait, Billing, Luke Billing, is your mom Colleen Billing? And they're like, we've seen the video of your bedroom. Like, we know what your house looks like, which was, he was like, Mom, that was so weird. I hope that never happens again, you know? But it was really cute. It was really cute. So that's really like the end of my infomercial. But, you know, sometimes it's fun. I had one mom tell me that they literally told their kids they were having movie night, and they popped popcorn and got like treats. And then when the kids went downstairs to watch the movie, guess what she put in the machine? My organizing video tour of my house. But sometimes the kids will be more enthusiastic if it's not mom telling them, if they see fun pictures of somebody else's house. So anyway, we have lots to talk about, and I'm done talking. I want you guys to talk. So why don't we all unmute, and then let's, I would love to hear about any projects that you guys did, maybe from last time, or any questions or comments or thoughts about tonight's topic on budgeting and paper clutter and tithing and all the good stuff.
I'm Gretchen. I have some questions on the paper stuff. So I feel like we're decent with bills and insurance. Like, it's not perfect. I got a few ideas from hearing you, but my piles on my desk are a lot of the kids stuff. And I know not everyone here has young kids, but I mean, let's see, this has worked for me, but it's becoming unmanageable. It's like, I have a file box for each kid with their school stuff, like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. But then I have another bin for like cards or letters they've received from people that they don't want to get rid of. And I feel bad making them throw them away. And then they have another box for artwork because I mean, those piles are big. And so I finally got a box for each kid. I was like, put it in a box and I'll have to deal with it later. So it's like, so I've got like, the report cards aren't all over the place like your mom said. So I've got, you know, the art and the letter
in your underwear drawer, Gretchen.
Right, not quite that bad, but that's what my piles are. So some of it I can't decide what to do with, so I just stick it in another box. So it might go in the basement. But then there's other things like manuals for washing machines and stuff, which I know a lot of people just do online. But I'm just a paper person. So I keep all that stuff and like trying to keep it current. So anyway, I don't know if you have anything to say about any of that, but.
Definitely. A couple things. First of all, I think I told you this last time, but one of my clients said, you know, on my tombstone, it's going to say a bin for everything and everything in its bin. I hate boxes because pretty much I hate bugs, and spiders like to eat cardboard. So if you see those little roly-poly bugs, you means you have spiders because they're part of the food chain. So I'm just like, no boxes, get rid of the boxes. So I'm a big fan of bins. Look for a sale. You know, you can get them cheaply. The dollar store has great bins, Target, Walmart, anywhere. You can get great bins. So I have a bin for all our manuals. Really, when you think about it, you don't get a manual very often. You know, a handful of them a year, probably. Like, you're not buying big things every year that require a manual. And then honestly, probably twice since we've lived in this house for 15 years, I've opened it up, you know, and it's kind of a day to tidy up like my laundry room, which is where my storage area is. I'll just go through it. I'll be like, nope, that dishwasher's done. That refrigerator's like 2 refrigerators ago, and I'll clean it out. Seriously, every like once a decade is probably fine. But again, if it's in one bin and it's contained and it's marked manuals, you will always know where to go, because, you know, you could buy a refrigerator and 6 months later something goes wrong, and then you want to find. One of my files says receipts. So anything significant that I buy that's a bigger ticket item, I just drop the receipt right in the receipts file. And that's come in handy many times when I've needed, like, something's broken that it shouldn't have broken this soon. you know, and I've been able to say like, I have the receipt. So that's one thing about the manuals. Could someone come and get the dog who's crying at my feet here? Because I won't pick him up. He just wants to say hi to you all. Come here, Pedro. Oh, I know. This is Pedro. Say hi, guys. I'm gonna hand him over. Thank you. Okay.
But things like manuals are not in your upstairs file. Those are
Nope.
like in
No.
thing.
So that's a really good point to make, is that you want to keep your files, you know, as manageable as possible. You don't want to put big bulky things. Okay. So we've got, like, I have a whole bin down in the basement that's like refis. Every time we refinance our house, all that refi paperwork goes in a bin. Okay. And that all stays down in the basement. So think about it this way. I use the phrase prime space all the time. So if your kids' art projects are taking up prime space in a room of your house, I'm going to guess you're not sitting drinking your coffee every morning looking through all of these wonderful art projects and like reminiscing, right?
No.
So a few ideas, because I have a lot of moms who ask me about art projects and things like that. You can take pictures of stuff, and then you can make a little art booklet out of it. So instead of it taking up, you know, this much space, you can make each kid a little booklet of their art projects, take a picture. And I'll tell you what, I don't think any of you are older than I am. So you're going to save all of this crap and your kids are not going to want it. Most of your kids are not going to want it. When my mom was moving out of her house, she had all of this stuff. And she's like, look, and my brother, all his trophies, he's 49 years old. He was like, Mom, throw them all away. His second grade T-ball MVP. You know, like, first of all, when your kids move out, give them all their stuff to take with them. You know, why she had all of this stuff, I don't know. If you absolutely can't get rid of it, if you can't bring yourself to do that, bin it all. But I'm telling you, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you're going to be staring at all those bins and you're going to go, oh my gosh, do you think, you know, Susan really cares about like the butterfly that she made out of toilet paper in second grade? The answer is going to be no. So like, save your favorites. I always say, you know, give yourself a couple. And if you want to have an art bin, one for each kid, you can do whatever you want. But that's where I like the special bin idea, because you could decide, okay, so here's what I say. You got the art projects, right? You say, Susan, do you love this? Do you want to keep it? And she's like, no, Mom, I don't even like that. And you're like, oh, but that was cute. Well, then guess what? It can go in your special bin.
Right.
She doesn't have to keep it in her special bin, right?
Sure.
So our special bin should be for the stuff that really is just really special. Now, we also homeschooled, so we didn't have a lot of our projects. But sure. I know a lot of school moms like are literally drowning in the paper and the piles that come home. But again, prime space, ladies, like, you want my island countertop right now, I keep my rule and my computer sitting on the end of it, because that's like my stand-up office, you know, every day I work from my island. And at the end of every night, this is prime space for me. This is like where all the magic happens. And I don't want all my kids' stuff all over this space, you know? So you just kind of have to decide, you know, where you want to draw the line, but get your kids' stuff. Just keep thinking, is this something that needs to be out? Do I need to be looking at it every day? Do I want to be looking at it? And if not, find a bin for it or take a picture of it and put it down in your storage area.
Okay.
With
thanks.
the like picture thing, Gretchen, just an idea. I just found this thing called chat books. Because that's like another thing. Then you have like all these pictures. And like, what do I do with these?
Yes.
And I just go every month and I go through and I can do 60 pictures. Well, twice a month. 60 pictures twice a month. And you just click them all on your phone. And it's through an app, chat books. And then it just sends you this little book. It's like, I don't know how big, it's pretty small, but it's nice because then you can kind of just like stack those up and you have like all your chat books of the year. And those could be like art projects, family pictures, whatever. But I was just like drowning in photos. Like, I don't know what to do with all these photos, like psycho, you know, and I only have 4 kids. I know a lot of my friends have like 7, 8, 9. So I don't know what they're doing.
You just start
Well,
having
art.
pictures for, 8 and 9. They don't have a lot. I can say that because I'm number 1.
I
So
love
there are
it.
plenty of pictures of me.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But
My
I
kids
thought
love
it's like $10 each book. So it's like, that's pretty cheap. I mean,
It's reasonable.
yeah.
Well, and that's not, it takes like some of the like, I'm always like, oh, maybe someday I'll gather all the pictures that I want, and then I'll go to CVS. Like it's like it takes some of those steps out so that you actually do it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
before I was just printing like photos and shoving them in books, but I have to do that on maternity leave because I work full time. And I'm like, what if I don't have another maternity leave? What if this is my last baby? I'll never get to all the photos. Like,
Guys, I literally have, when we all got iPhones for the first time, there was that, as we were getting kind of used to that, and we stopped printing out all of our pictures, right? So I have like a big bin, like a big one that just is full of pictures. It's like, I call it like my secret, my dirty little secret. It's like my professional organizing dark cloud, So my daughter, will be my assistant someday, my 18-year-old, she's already working with me a little bit. She's like, Mom, we are taking that bin to the lake this summer, and we are doing all of those stupid pictures. I mean, there are a lot of pictures in there. I'm going to need like multiple more albums. But now, like, I love the digital picture world because they're all on my computer. They're all backed up to the cloud, but I never print them out. So it's kind of a catch-22, My son got married
to look at them too. Like toddlers love to look at pictures of themselves, and I just feel so bad that, they don't have anywhere to look at them.
Yeah, it's true. My boys, who all have all these photo albums full of pictures of themselves, love to pull them out still.
Yeah.
My girls have nothing. They're on the computer. They're like, we're going to make our own photo albums. You're a terrible mother. But it's all right. It's all right. What else? What other tips and tricks? What do you guys think about the filing stuff? Is it way over the top for you? Are you like, I'm never doing that ever? Or maybe some of it, or you're already using a system that's working well for you?
I like your binder. I think that's a great idea to have that. I mean, I have like a little box on my desk, but I love the idea of like something being portable, to just like have with me so I can kind of knock some of those things out on the fly. That's huge.
I'll literally like get things done at stoplights sometimes, or
Right.
a train. You can sit and wait for like 12 minutes for a train. If I've got my rule with me, I was like, I just knocked off 3 phone calls while the train went by,
Yeah, that's nice.
I like that idea so much better than like, there's all the different like desks or desk organizers, and I feel like I've got like one of each different kind, hoping that the next kind would be the magic bullet, right? That would like actually help me, like turn me into this person. But it's so, even like the ones I really like are like the magazine holder kind of style ones. But things get like there's just really no good way of keeping things organized in there. And it can become really overwhelming, even though it's contained. And so I really like the idea of like, okay, like this week I'm only thinking about like whatever's in that front pocket. Like that's sounds very doable to me. And the idea that like, I actually have like a little like win from this past month that I want to share. Like we've got this big kitchen counter that's like across our kitchen from where we usually cook, but it'd be nice to have that counter for like, when we're prepping a lot of things or whatever, but it just becomes this dumping ground for like all the things that the baby gets a hold of that he shouldn't have, like goes up there, and like all the things that somebody's little brother like ripped that I'm supposed to fix, or whatever. It just as a dumping ground. And I finally this past weekend like decided to like clear. I was at a friend's house and her counters were totally clear, and I was like, oh, this feels so nice. I'm like, I want to do this. So I cleaned out like a cupboard where I'm like, okay, this is because there is stuff that like you need to be able to access quickly, like your desk in there, right? And so that was originally what was supposed to be on that counter. It was gonna be like my command center, but it just ends up like collecting more stuff. And so instead now it can all be behind like a closed door or like a cabinet that was being used really poorly for kitchen stuff, and I was able to find a different home for. And so like the binder, I can imagine it sliding right in there when I'm not using it, and it's out of reach for most of the kids. So I really like the binder idea too.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. There's also another good app I use. It's called Spending Tracker, and it's just like super easy. It's just expense and income. So you just put in your income, like whatever you've got coming in. And then from an expense, I just go through like my Chase every night and see like what I spent for the day. Or if I'm like, good about it, leaving Target, I pop it in real fast, but I just hit expense, the amount, what it was, and boom, it's in there. And then I know exactly where I am. And that's been really helpful, because sometimes you're just like, you look at that, you're only halfway through and you're like, holy smokes, like that was a lot of stuff that I just spent a lot of money on. You don't realize how quickly it adds up. But when you can see it, it's so helpful.
One like little silly thing that my husband and I really enjoy is that, sometimes you feel bad, like, oh, I really want to buy this thing, but my husband wants to buy that thing, and we're not agreeing on it. So we get an allowance. I love the allowance idea. It sounds silly, but like he gets his money and I get my money, and we do not have to be accountable to each other about, and it's not a lot. It's like $60 for a pay period or something like that. But it's my coffee money. He loves to buy books. And so, we have to figure that out, because he can't buy books with his cash. So I'm like, Amazon, oh, another Amazon. So I was like, all right, this is coming out of your allowance now. I'm going to get less cash out for you. But it is good. Like, it's good to have. And then, we have this rule, like nobody uses a debit card for anything, major that's not planned, unless there's a conversation first, but we say that, but he doesn't really, he's like, whatever, honey. He's terrible. You think we need that? Okay. I'm like, I need some accountability here. But
I like that idea of like it just feels like you avoid so much guilt that way, right? Because then it's not like, oh, I really shouldn't go get the coffee. It's like, well, do I have money in my allowance for coffee? I do. Okay, great. And then it's just like alleviate, like you just leave that guilt behind, or like, friend wants to go out to lunch, like, okay, yeah, I can, and I think that's really, I always wonder about like how much energy we kind of like forfeit, like willingly, even though I think sometimes we feel kind of victim to it though, like just by like feeling guilty about doing these things, or then we don't do these things because we assume that we can't, and then that comes back to bite us later. I just think, yeah, I really like that. Like it's I think it really plays into like an abundance mindset, like while still being like really careful isn't the right word, but just like responsible, right? It's like it's either there or it's not, but like,
well, God is good and he loves us and he wants us to go get a glass of wine with our girlfriends and to have good coffee once in a while, and not just like pop a dumb K-cup in the Keurig, and I think that our marriages are better, our relationships with our friends are better, everything is better when there's a little bit of self-care happening, so I think that my husband works in downtown Chicago. Do you know how many amazing places there are to eat down there? Like, he gets more allowance than I do because he has more opportunity to spend it on fun things, and he works really hard, and I don't resent him for that, because I kind of am in charge of all the money and he gets his allowance. So if he wants to go spend it on, frivolous things, then he's not spending $1,000. He's spending, $40 a week or something like that, whatever he wants to do. But yeah, I think it's good for you. It makes you feel like, you're still your own person. Like he doesn't spend his money on any of the things that I spend my money on, and vice versa. So it still gives us both a little bit of opportunity to have some independence and not have to check in or worry about everything, That was like one of the hardest things about COVID. There just was no extra. So it was like, oh, can we get coffee? Can we stop for coffee? So our time is almost up. But anybody else have anything?
This is just a side thing, but budgeting, my husband, I feel like budgeting brings freedom, because it's like, oh, I know I can spend this amount on groceries or whatever, but he experiences as like a noose around his neck, so it's like we both sort of know that it's needed, but we have very different experiences of it. So that has been challenging.
It's really hard when you're not on the same page. and we're not always on the same page. My husband's a little freer with the debit card than I am, you know, and that can cause resentment because I'm the one who's sitting like doing all the labor, you know, like figuring things out. Like, okay, we got a birthday party this month. I have 3 more things that we need some extra money for. Like, I joke, like, I'm like, if I die tomorrow, none of that stuff would happen, and would it really be that big of a deal, you know? But I think that they're just the freedom that budgeting has brought. And I think, okay, so we have this stupid like little sewer issue in our neighborhood. And so we all had to get these like underground things put in. And then the village, as long as you get them cleaned out every other year, if you have any sewer backup, the village will help you pay for it. Okay. So it's like $450 to get this thing cleaned out. So we typically don't have an extra $450 just sitting around, right, to write an extra check. So we have to like plan for it. So I'll never forget last year, the guy comes, does the routing, you know, and he comes in, and Andrew had just gotten home from work, and he was like, all right, Mrs. Billing, that's, you know, that's gonna be like $470. And I was like, I pulled out my little thing. I've got an envelope in there that says Roto-Rooter, and it had $480 in it. And my husband was like, I love you. You know? And I think those are the moments where it's like, okay, at Weight Watchers, we always talk about like, everything's hard, right? Being overweight's hard. Losing weight is hard. Maintaining your weight's hard. Blah, blah, blah. Like, pick your heart. Pick your heart. Because we are not meant for this world. It's all hard, right? But pick your heart. Like, I would rather forego, you know, does it feel like a noose sometimes? Of course it does. Like, concupiscence wants us to like want to get everything we want, right? Yeah. But man, when that stupid Roto-Rooter money is in the envelope, or when the school supplies bill is coming and I know I have to go to Target and there's $300 in that envelope, I'm like, now we can still go out to dinner this month. And I don't have to use my money that we were going to use to go out to dinner to buy stupid pencils and dry erase markers and, you know, tampons or whatever.
Yep.
So
that's
hard. It's hard. I think it's just that constant communication and negotiating, you know, and trying to say, like, for my husband, it helped us a lot when I like loosened the purse strings a little bit and just gave him more, you know, allowance money. Because then he didn't feel quite so, you know. When the kids start to leave, I'm literally going to create like a book category in the budget. So I'm going to be like, hey, you have like $60 a month. That's like 3 books if you plan well. I mean, he reads like a book a week. So that's his drug. I like my coffee and my wine, and he likes his books. So
what would you recommend for someone who wants to start a filing system? I'm just not sure we have room for like a filing cabinet. Is there anything like you've had?
I have a good thing. I'd show you with the babies on me. I can show you.
That's okay. You send a picture.
Yeah, it's just like it's like a handheld filing plastic tote. I have 2 of them. I got them at Office Depot. It's because we move so often that I was just like so over the filing cabinet thing. I just needed to be able to like grab and go. So I have one for business and one for family. And they're not big, but they're great because they're just, you know, easy stackable.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think I used to have one of those for work. I kind of forgot about them, but yeah,
yeah. And then we'll obviously go color code them, do all the fancy stuff,
or not, or you can just color code the tabs if you want. It's just, you know, we have 5 kids, so finding things in a timely manner is really nice. You know, it's nice to not have to spend half an hour looking for a piece of paper that I'm looking for. So when it's color coded, and I know, like, if it's something for my business, if it's not in a purple folder, I do not have it. I don't have to go looking in any other folders, you know? So it's just for some people, they're like, that's not that important to me. You know, it's like anything else we're going to talk about. You have to sort of decide, like, what are the things that are kind of driving me crazy, and tackle those things first. You know, when people say, like, where do I start in my house? I'm like, start with the thing that's driving you the craziest, because you're going to be so happy when you get through it. You know, and there's nothing There's nothing like that feeling. How many of you have had like a dumb project that you've literally been looking at for like potentially years in your house, and you finally decide you're going to do it, and it takes like an hour, and you're like, I just looked at that stupid broken drawer for 3 years, and now I just fixed it in an hour.
That's so true. Yeah. I feel like we always fix stuff before you move. You know, like you make it perfect and then you move. You're like, why didn't I do that like 2 years ago? I would have enjoyed that.
Well, that's why we started this painting every January, because my husband's like, I want to enjoy our rooms looking lovely and not just like paint our house for the next person who gets to enjoy it, you know?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's fun for the kids too, as they get older. Like that rotation puts us on like probably every like 4 to 5 years, every room gets painted. And when you have daughters, especially, like they love when it's like their turn that their room is coming around. And now my husband has taught them all to paint. So like my 18-year-old daughter, she decided to stay home and go to community college. And she's like, I'm redoing my room. And she painted her own room, you know, because now she knows how to paint. So we didn't have to budget that room in this time around because she just wanted it done over the summer. So she did it herself. So it's fun. Teach your kids all the things now, then they take care of us. Anything else?
So colleague, yeah, what would you recommend for like a plan for the month? Like one thing to tackle for all of us?
Okay, so I would say like pick something related to paper, whether it's you're gonna figure out, like Megan, you said, like I'm gonna find some portable system that's gonna work for me, even if you don't put the whole thing together. And you know, like Lauren, it sounds like you have a good system, but is there something that you could fine tune? Like I'm like, I need some new folders. Like some of those folders are looking really sad. Like I need to spend a couple hours and just work on my filing cabinets. So if everybody could just sort of, you know, maybe you haven't given a lot of thought to like tithing or donations or things like that. Maybe that's something that you could sort of take to prayer this month and just think about and maybe do like something, some action toward that. I mean, you know, maybe you'll make your bed twice this month.
Who knows? Only God can help me do that, honestly.
Lauren, I can't tell you how many times that when I would go to make our bed, or like I would be like, oh, this is so annoying. And then I'd be like, I still don't know how Lauren's doing it with 2 comforters. Like, how do you do that?
It's just not possible.
I was like, okay, I only have 1 comforter. I guess I can suck it up and do it. Like,
that's funny. Yeah.
I
No,
thought of
it
you ladies
makes
this morning when I made my bed, because
Yeah.
I really didn't want to. I had a client and I was running late, and I'm like, and she's so laid back. She's always running late. I'm like, no, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late. And I'm gonna make my bed and put my pillows on. Practice what you preach, Colleen. So good. So next time we're going to talk about the infamous heart of the home, our kitchens. So come with all of your kitchen questions. If any of you want to be in your kitchen, like Claire, we get to see her kitchen all the time here. I will probably be sitting in the same spot because I'm in my kitchen right now. My boys are all like, oh, you're doing your seminar in the kitchen, which means they have to go 2 whole hours without eating any food, which is very difficult for them. So, and then we're going to talk about kids spaces too. So I might bring you upstairs and, you know, show you a couple of the kids' bedrooms and some of the ways in which we store some of the kids' things. And so we'll go from there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a delight to be with you guys. Always. I'll pray for you that you get, you know, we kind of like will build, right? So like think of something in your bedroom that you can continue to work on, or your prayer spaces. Did anybody like create any little prayer space since last month? Or probably most of you guys already have some spots that you like to see.
I'm putting together prayer bags for my kids for Lent. That's my goal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. My kids love their little prayer bags. They would take them to church probably for too long. Okay, you don't need a prayer bag anymore. You're like 7, you know, like you can pay attention to mass now. So All right, ladies. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.